All right, Pete, it's finally here. Crawford versus Canelo at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas goes down Saturday, live on Netflix. One of the biggest fights of all time in boxing. So much hype around this thing. I'm pumped. I can't wait to see what happens Saturday night. This is certainly, like I said, one of the biggest fights that we're gonna see as boxing fans in this modern era. So many things to kind of consider as you have two great champions going head to head. First of all, before we get into our picks, I wanted to take a step back and think about a little bit how we kind of got here for a second. So we have Terrence Crawford obviously moving up two weight classes to challenge Canelo for his super middleweight undisputed status, all of his titles at super middleweight. I'm curious, right off the bat, let's just get right into it. This is a tall order for any fighter to move up, one weight class, two weight classes is unheard of in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah.
And especially against an opponent as dangerous and as decorated as Canelo. Just right off the bat, what are your thoughts on sort of this matchup in general when you heard it kind of announced, and now that we're right around the corner from it?
Yeah, like you said, it's one of the biggest fights in this modern era. Immediately, what I thought of is kind of like old school boxing, like they're actually putting champion against champion again. I feel like boxing has been getting a little more popular lately because they've been kind of putting the fights on that fans want to see. For a while there, they were just a lot of these boxers and promoters were picking their own fights, and you can argue that Mayweather had like, a lot of fights, stuff like that, that he probably knew he was going to win. So it's really refreshing to see that these guys are kind of putting their money where their mouth is, basically saying like, I'm the champion, he's a champion, so the two best guys go at it. So I was definitely excited to hear this. It's not something you see in a lot of modern day boxing, but fortunately, it's something we're seeing more of, which is great. And yeah, Terrence Crawford is moving up two weight classes. If you're not a huge boxing fan and you look at the weight classes, you wouldn't think that's a big deal. It's because he's going from 147 welterweight to 154, which is junior middleweight, and then 68. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but when these guys are trained to do this year in and year out at the same weight and knowing what their bodies are, that's a lot of weight, and he's gonna have an easier time. He's not gonna have to cut weight, which is good. Um, but we all know Canelo is known for his power. He's known for he's big, and he's going to be even bigger in there when they're fighting because his natural weight is a lot bigger than Crawford's. But I'm excited to see it. I think Crawford is in a no lose situation here. I know he's undefeated, but I think if he loses to the bigger fighter. If he wins, what a what a job that the technical boxer beat the brawler. So I'm definitely excited to see it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is the huge question here. Like, you look at Canelo, you look at his history at super middleweight. He's had most of his success there. The fights that he did lose were in different weight classes. Obviously earlier in his career to Floyd Mayweather, when he was quite young, quite early
Mhm.
in his career. Floyd being the master tactician that he was, kind of picked him apart. And then more recently, when you look at Canelo, he had his move up to light heavyweight to challenge Dimitri Bivol, which obviously also ended in a loss for Canelo. And I think we're seeing, in that sense, sort of the cap where Canelo, I think, fits the best with his weight. And I think that is at super middleweight, 168. And he's had success there, as of late. You look at, obviously, wins over Caleb Plant, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga more recently. The one thing that you do look at, obviously, is if you follow boxing, you follow Canelo. This year's bit of a stinker matchup in his Riyadh season debut against William Skull in May. And that was a fight where Skull clearly did not want to engage with Canelo the whole fight. He was on his bike the whole time. He was running a lot, and it didn't seem that he wanted any smoke with Canelo. and that makes for a tough fight, right? Because it takes two to
Yeah,
tango, right? And that fight resulted in the least punches thrown in a 12-round fight
yeah,
at 445 punches, I believe, in that matchup. So a lot of people, looked at that and said, maybe there is a bit of a decline here with Canelo. Maybe there's, he's not doing a lot of the things that we saw early in his career, that Mexican pressure style that we're so accustomed to seeing. But I think, a lot has changed as well over the years, and he's had to become a lot more efficient, a bit more of a counterpuncher in his kind of later age in this stage in his career. So I think when you consider all those factors, I don't necessarily look at it as a situation where Canelo is necessarily, over the hill, or, he's significantly on the decline. I look at it as a situation that, he's always been this kind of fighter, in my opinion, that rises to the occasion,
yeah.
of big fights, and his opponent has to, give him that in exchange. And I think in Terrence Crawford, we got a guy who's going to bring it. I don't think he's going to be running like Skull around the ring. He's got way too much pride to do that. He's such such a pro in there, an amazing champion at the weight classes that he has been at. But yeah, that is the question for me too. Has he bitten off a little more that than he can chew with this? I think he's had immense success at 147. That's where he's had his most success. We're talking about Bud here, right? And
Mhm.
he's had some really great wins in that division. When we saw him move up last August to 154, where he fought Israel Madrimov, it looked like a little bit of a tougher fight. Definitely the size from Madrimov played a little bit more of a role. Some of the things that Crawford would traditionally do, he wasn't necessarily able to do against a bigger man. And now you're talking about another jump, and a fighter who in Canelo is quite a bit, I think more skilled, than Madrimov even still, right? So you're talking about two big jumps. And not to mention, I look at the fact that I think, Crawford over the last couple of years has been a lot more inactive than Canelo. Canelo has been fighting regularly. He has had those. He's just signed that Riyadh season deal. He's been active, whereas Crawford, he fought Madrimov last August, and then before that it was the Errol Spence fight, which was absolutely his coming out party, an amazing fight where he dominated Errol Spence in wild fashion. But when you start considering those things about the inactivity that Bud's had, along with the fact that he's moving up two weight classes, I start to question whether that's going to play a factor in this fight.
Yeah, and I think everybody kind of sees that and worries about that. The one thing I do give the Crawford, he's known for his ring IQ. He's smart, he's adaptable. Now he has experience, recent experience, his most recent experience going up in weight, so he knows kind of what to expect. And if you look at Canelo, the people he struggled with the most was Mayweather, and lately was Skull, and he struggled cutting off the ring. He struggled with movers and defensive fighters, and Crawford does that better than anybody. He's one of the has some of the best footwork I've ever seen. Like I said, his ring IQ is unbelievable. His counter punch is great. His stamina is great. So that's what's gonna kind of, if he's gonna win this, that's what's got to put him over the top. He has to use that to his advantage. But he's going to have to mix it up with him. And it's going to be 12 rounds. So can he weather the storm when he does get in there and mix it up with him? We'll see. But both these guys are going to take the fight seriously. Canelo never shows up to a fight not in shape, and Crawford has some of the best stamina of any modern boxer right now. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. And I really excited to see how Bud uses the ring against Canelo, one of the greatest fighters of all time. So I think if Canelo is going to kind of chase him down, which he's probably going to do with that Mexican style of fighting, instead of running around like Skull did, he's going to have to use his counter punching and ring presence, which he's one of the best to do it. So I don't think he's going to be like Skull at all. I think he moves around the ring a lot better than him. He's a lot better footwork, and it's going to be more of counter punching and ring IQ than running around.
And I love that point you brought up about sort of the movement being the key, because I agree with that. For Crawford, I think the key to victory obviously is, it sounds very obvious. Don't stand in front of Canelo. Don't stand
Yeah,
straight in front of him. Give him angles. Give him different looks. That's going to be the important thing here. Another sort of underrated thing I think about, with Bud is that he's one of the best switch hitters that we've seen in
yeah,
boxing.
mhm.
He can switch from
Yes,
orthodox to southpaw, right? And that is a very unusual trait for a guy at this elite level. So I think that is a very interesting puzzle. Should he choose to, pull that out for Canelo to solve, right? And I think
yes,
that it would be to his benefit to use that with this fight for sure, because it's going to give Canelo some awkward looks. He's not going to be able to get the timing as well as he might with someone just standing in one stance, right?
yeah,
So I look at that with Bud, a really unique trait that gives him an edge in that sense. And I agree with you. I think it's, for Canelo, you're not going to want to run around. You're going to want to cut off, right? And that's obviously easier said than done against a guy like Bud, whose footwork is so good, whose IQ is so high. But I do think that, if anyone has the ability to cut off guys and really put that pressure on them, it is Canelo. And I do think that, at some point in this fight, he will catch Crawford with something, and it may change the trajectory of the fight. Not saying that it will completely, for all the
yeah,
Bud fans. I love Bud too,
mhm,
but
yeah,
I'm just saying that in this particular instance, you're gonna see when the guy who's naturally, fought most of his career at 147 gets hit by the guy who's, at 168 for a lot of his career. Is that going to change the trajectory of the fight? Now, knowing Bud, seeing his performances, he's such a dog. You're not going to see it, right? Unless it's like a really really hard shot, you're not going to really see it from him. But that'll be interesting for me. Is that first clean power shot that lands, if it does land on Bud, right?
yeah, yeah.
How will he be able to wear that throughout the course of a 12-round fight, right?
Yeah, and that's interesting because um, Canelo in some of his fights he's kind of known to fade after around 7 or 8, but he always does find a way to use his power and seems to get the knockout in a lot of those times. As far as southpaw, that was a big point. It was a great point you made there because lately Crawford has been going full southpaw, and I think that he's going to do that this fight. If you look at some of Canelo's struggles over his career, he had struggles with the slick kind of southpaw fighters. With Trout, that was a very competitive fight. Lara was a great fight as well. Many thought Canelo lost that fight, and he's a very slick southpaw. And then you have Billy Joe Saunders, who he was doing well until Canelo broke his orbital bone, which there comes the power of Canelo comes in there. But Canelo is 6-0 versus southpaws in the last 15 years with 3 KOs. But a lot of the biggest troubles he has were with these guys, these southpaws that kind of use their kind of awkwardness to their advantage. And Crawford's perfect record, he makes him adaptable and makes him dangerous. But Canelo's size advantage is real. So we'll see what happens. I am excited to see
Yeah,
if Crawford gets caught with that first punch, how he reacts. And I think he'll be fine, but we'll find out when it happens.
totally. And interestingly enough, in sort of recent days and stuff, we've seen that your Philly brethren, Jerron Boots Ennis, has sort of entered the Canelo camp as a sparring partner for Canelo, which is really interesting. I find, because
Yeah,
here's another guy who's a switch hitter who has had success with that a similar sort of style, similar flavor to Bud, right? Obviously, not the exact same, but it's interesting to see that he was, brought into the camp, um, and had some sparring rounds with Canelo as well. So, they are obviously on Canelo's side preparing for, this sort of awkward movement, this switching of stances that Bud's going to bring.
Yeah.
Obviously Boots Ennis is not Terrence Bud Crawford, but
Yeah.
he might give you some looks that are similar in some ways for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you can and it just goes to show you like Canelo is always game. He's always prepared, and he's not taking this fight lightly. He brought in a guy that kind of closely resembles Crawford's kind of way he fights. Ennis is known for his speed, his versatility, his ability to switch stance, like you said, and he's very similar to Crawford, and bringing him into his camp to help him definitely shows that Canelo is serious about this fight. He's not a lot of these guys when they have these legend fights or these champion fights, they kind of see it as like their way out. But that definitely doesn't seem like Canelo's taking it like that. He's not taking it lightly. It's just another fight for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now getting to the good stuff, Pete.
Yeah.
I want to know your pick for this fight, your best bets, any sort of thing that you're seeing right now that you want to share.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to go with Crawford. The last time I checked, Crawford was plus 145 underdog. I tend to go with the underdogs, especially in these big giant boxing matches. I know Crawford is going up 2 weight classes. I know Canelo has the power, he has the size, he has the strength, but that southpaw stance is really, I think, is really going to come into effect. And I think if Crawford adapts to the weight and uses his IQ, he can outpoint Canelo. He's not going to knock Canelo out, but if Canelo's not able to cut off the ring, if he's not able to apply the pressure that he usually applies, if he's not able to attack the body because of Crawford's ring presence, then it's going to be a long night for Canelo, and I think that is definitely a possibility. Crawford's his perfect record, his adaptability makes him dangerous, and I think the smart bet here the fight is going to go the distance, and I think Crawford could outpoint him. Like I said, if he uses his strength to his advantage, he's going to have the perfect fight, the perfect game plan against Canelo. And like I said, he's going to have to weather the storm a few times in that ring. It's a long fight, and if he can weather the storm through those like round 4, round 5, round 8, round 9, I think he could win most rounds just by outboxing him and using his stamina, using his ring IQ, and frustrating Canelo. His southpaw stance could neutralize Canelo's dangerous left hook, which is a big factor. And Crawford excels at timing fighters as they close distance. That's one of his big things. And Canelo loves to close distance. So Crawford could use that to his advantage, which most fighters, when they face Canelo and he's closing distance, they tend to run like Skull. And I don't think Crawford's that kind of fighter. He likes when fighters tackle him. He enjoys it. He has a great he has a great game plan when fighters are very aggressive, and I think Canelo is just as aggressive as they come. So fighting southpaw enhances ability to stick, to move, and frustrate Canelo, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to outpoint him, and I think he's going to get the upset here.
I can't say that I'm mad at the pick, but I'm going the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I'm going Canelo plus 20, bet 365 for the decision or technical decision. A lot of the reasoning for that, I think, is that we haven't seen Crawford at 168 pounds. This is a big leap for him. I do think for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, there's a lot to look forward to in this fight, for sure. And I think that Crawford is going to have a lot of great moments as well in this fight. I think it's, like you said, going to be quite a bit closer than a lot of people think. I don't think necessarily we're going to see a knockout here. I think we're going to see a great fight between two of the greatest boxers of this era, right? The thing that I look at with Canelo that I keep coming back to is obviously the success of that he's enjoyed at super middleweight.
Yeah.
He's the proven he's the proven commodity here. The thing that I also look to with Bud is that he does like to engage sometimes, and that in this fight, I think, can be to his detriment. When you get in the pocket with a guy like Canelo Alvarez, it usually does not end well. Now, it's arguable that Canelo hasn't been in the ring with a guy, with as many different kind of tricks up his sleeve as Bud. Even if you look
Yeah.
to his fight with Mayweather all those years earlier, I do think Bud has actually an arsenal that is actually more well rounded in that sense.
I
He
agree.
uh,
Yeah.
he has great offense and he has great defense. So that's going to be interesting here. But the way that I played this fight out, kind of in my head, and I've gone back and forth. I've seen the Bud scenarios in my head. I've seen the Canelo ones, but I do keep coming back to the fact of you got a bigger guy here. Two weight classes is quite significant. Listen, Alexander Usyk did one weight class up. Guys have moved up weight classes. You go back to Manny Pacquiao. You go back to even more recently Naoya Inoue. He's been a multiple weight class champion, but I think under different circumstances, I don't think have seen a guy go straight up two weight classes like this.
And and he's going up and facing the best in that weight class.
100%.
So it's going
Exactly.
to be tough.
Exactly. That is a huge factor. So for all those reasons, I'm going to go. It's Mexican Independence Day weekend. The Canelo fans, I think, are going to be happy come Saturday night. I think he gets it done decision or technical decision, like I said, plus 120 odds at Bet365. And if you want to get crazy, though, and if you're feeling crazy, plus 1,400 for the draw. Just look out for that one. That's
Yep.
one that I'm kind of watching closely. If you want to get a little crazy with it, just know that that's out there.
Yeah. Another. If I would go the Canelo route, as far as odds wise, the last time I checked, the odds may have moved since then, but Canelo by KO, TKO, DQ was around plus 380. So that would be the way I would go if I would pick Canelo. It's just nice, really good odds for a knockout artist. And anytime, and I feel like if that weight comes in to be a factor, he's the bigger, stronger guy. And I think if Canelo wins, he's gonna probably gonna win by stoppage. But yeah, Crawford, you can also go with Crawford by decision if you think he has no chance of knocking Canelo out, but he has a chance of winning, and that's at plus 200. It doesn't really, not really too much difference than just the money line plus 145 bet right now. So that's up to you if you want to take that risk. But yeah, so I feel the same way. I do like to go with those sometimes those crazy odd bets, and mine would be the plus 380 Canelo KO, because then it's a win-win. You get to see a great fight. You get to see a knockout, and you win some money.
Absolutely. Can't be mad at that.
No.
Whatever the case is going to be, we know it's going to be an absolutely electric night. Like I said, Saturday, Allegiant Stadium, Canelo versus Crawford. It goes down. He's Pete Amato. I'm Pat Cwiklinski for SBD. Make sure you guys keep it locked to all the coverage on sportsbettingdime.com and check us out at SBD on X. Take care.